Am I a dreamy man because I dream too much?
Yes.
I felt so warm and relaxed as I lay in the hot sand with my eyes closed, feeling the bright sun kissing my skin with its radiant heat. The sound of the waves gently crashing and then flowing back into the ocean from whence they came, combined with the salty scent of the moisture in the air, putting me in such a peaceful state. This is the life, I thought to myself as a smile spread across my face. I could feel something tickle my nose and brush across my eyes. So I reached a hand up to my face and brushed at my mustache and eyes. Must be the breeze blowing sand on me, I guess. Well, no big deal, I concluded after feeling the small beads of sand brush off of me. As I continued lying there, mind free of any thoughts and just being present in the moment with nature, I felt tiny pieces of sand intermittently being blown onto my face, chest, and legs. I knew I could feel the breeze with that salty scented ocean air, which I figured was causing the sand to keep blowing onto me. But the sand seemed to be landing on top of me more frequently, despite the strength of the breeze remaining the same. In fact, I could still feel the sand gently landing on me, even when the air remained still between the breezes. Finally, some sand ended up getting into my nose and started tickling my sinuses, making me want to sneeze. Purple cows, I said aloud to myself, trying to get rid of that feeling of sneezing. Sure enough, it worked, and I no longer felt like sneezing. But I decided it was probably about time for me to get up now and go back to... Wait, where am I? I suddenly sat straight up and opened my eyes, but immediately shaded them with my hand, as the sun and blue sky were so bright it almost hurt. In front of me was the deep blue ocean, with waves gently lapping at the powdery tan-colored sand. Turning from right to left, I scanned the sandy beach around me, but there was nobody else here. Immediately, I started trying to remember how I even got here in the first place. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't seem to remember. It was as if I suddenly just poofed into existence, lying here in the sand on this empty beach. I stood up and started brushing the sand off of me, wondering why I could still feel sand falling on top of my head and getting into my hair even after standing up. Finally, I turned around and I gasped in surprise. Whoa, what the hell? Where am I right now? I said to myself out loud, feeling panic welling up inside of me. In front of me, all I could see were palm trees and thick green, tropical-looking jungle that was so dense I couldn't see probably more than 10 or 15 feet into it. I don't understand. I don't understand. How did I get here? I frantically thought as I continued to look around the beach. I don't see any boat or life raft for that matter. I don't see any buildings. I don't see anything that could indicate how in the world I got here. I took in several deep breaths and said to myself, Okay. Logically, I had to have gotten here somehow, right? I'll just pick a direction and start walking down the beach. I'm sure I'll run into someone or something. I looked to my left, which seemed to be north, if my sense of direction and the position of the sun could be trusted. Seems as good as any direction, I thought. and started walking up the seemingly northward direction of the beach. As I kept walking and walking down the endless sandy beach, I kept taking a look at the palm trees and jungle to my right, but I didn't see any indication of a trail or evidence of civilization. What I did notice, however, is the sand that seems to keep falling on me from... What the hell, man? Where is this sand coming from? I thought to myself as I shook the sand out of my hair and brushed it off of my shoulders. I looked up and I turned around in every direction to see where the sand was coming from, but all I could see was the bright sun and vibrant blue sky. Whatever, I thought, feeling a bit annoyed by the pesky sand, but also a bit confused. It felt like something was wrong here. I mean, it was all wrong in the first place, since I had absolutely no idea how I got here, and I have no memories at all of anything other than waking up the moment I got here. Something else was definitely wrong about this place, though. I just couldn't quite put my finger on it. So, I kept walking and occasionally looking to my right at the jungle for any sign of a trail or marker of some kind, but I did not see anything. That's when I noticed something peculiar about the palm trees and the plants, though. As I was moving and looking at them, they seemed to almost sparkle and shimmer, like they were reflecting the sunlight. There was also a strange tan tint and texture to them, so I decided to walk a little closer and get a better look. I walked up to the nearest sago palm tree with all of its fronds spreading out in every direction, and I touched one of them. Sand? I thought to myself, feeling even more confused now. All of the plants seemed to be covered in sand, and as I stood there touching the frond, I could feel tiny impacts of more and more sand seemingly falling from the sky. I looked up again and only saw the clear blue sky, until sand got into my eyes and I had to bend over and blink rapidly to try and get it out. Man, what in the world is going on here? I asked nobody in particular, feeling pretty concerned at this point. Once I could open my eyes again, I decided that I really needed to pick up the pace and try to figure out where I am, so I started running up the beach. This place is just too weird, and now I could feel the sand falling faster and heavier, like when the bulk of a rainstorm starts moving directly over you, dumping buckets of rain from the thick dark clouds. Except here, it was with clear skies and sand instead of rain. The faster I ran, the more I began to realize that I wasn't getting anywhere. Everything just continued looking exactly the same, and it was becoming harder and harder to run. The sand was getting so thick now that I could see it covering up much of the ground foliage, and it was coming up to my knees. Come on! Come on! I shouted as I tried to start climbing out of the sand. It was falling too quickly now, though, and the sand was up to my chest before I knew it. I kept trying to take in deep breaths and climb out of the sand, but I couldn't help but cough as the sand would enter my lungs. Help! Help! I started yelling for help, but as I did, I was immediately cut off by my mouth filling up with sand. Before I knew it, I was completely covered in sand, totally buried alive in sand on a deserted island in the middle of nowhere. Is this really how I'm going to die? I thought to myself, trying to wriggle around with my last bit of energy. No, no, no! Come on, I cried out in my mind, but it was to no avail. The sand kept piling on, and I could feel the heavy weight of it crushing down on top of me now. It must be completely covering the entire island by now, without even the trees being visible anymore. It doesn't make any sense, though. I mean, is this even real? What is going on? Just when my lungs began to really scream and burn, needing air and causing my body to start involuntarily shaking as I held my breath to keep the sand out as a last-ditch effort to stay alive, I suddenly felt light and being lifted up. No, wait, that's not exactly right. It felt more like... No way. What the hell? I thought to myself, feeling even more confused now, as I felt gravity beneath me reverse and all of the sand and my body start falling up toward the sky. A moment ago, I was nearly being crushed and suffocated by sand, and now I'm suddenly falling up into the bright blue sky with a huge wall of sand above me. Or is it below me? I don't even know. All of the sand that was previously crushing me is now above me in the air, falling up, just like I am. But it's remaining oddly circular in shape. Is the island circular? Maybe that's why it's falling up in a circular type shape? I thought with wonder. This situation was so strange that it had actually abated my feelings of fear and panic for the time being. I tried to turn and look behind me at the island I had previously been on, but it turns out it's incredibly difficult to do while you're falling and have nothing to exert force on, which can propel you in one direction or another. Somehow, I managed to twist myself just enough to get a quick glance, but what I saw didn't seem to make any sense. There was nothing but blue sky where the island should have been. Actually, there was nothing but blue sky everywhere. The ocean was no longer there at all either. And in their place was nothing but bright blue sky, and somehow the sun was also there, even though it seemed to be below me, or what used to be below me anyway. It was as if everything in the whole world had just completely reversed. What is going on? I shouted to myself as the air quickly rushed past me. I started to turn back around, and I'm glad I did. That circular wall of sand that had been falling above me toward the sky was suddenly standing still. And this is a problem, because I'm still falling and heading right for it. Ah! I screamed as the sand rushed up at me faster and faster until I... Oof! Oh! The wind was knocked out of me as I smashed into the sand, face first. Ugh! I groaned as I rolled over onto my back, trying to catch my breath. After a few moments, I was able to get up and I looked around. When this crazy situation started, I was still right next to the water as the sand began to fall up, so I didn't have to walk very far to see the edge of the sand. I walked slowly toward that edge with trepidation, feeling a sinking feeling in my stomach, and I swallowed dryly. As I reached the edge, I gasped as the air was sucked out of my lungs. I leaned over the edge and I could see a circular wall of sand going down until it seemed to curve back under itself. And underneath that was nothing but pure blue sky. What the hell? Man, what is going on? This literally does not make any sense. I don't understand, I said shakily, trying to grasp how this could possibly be happening. It didn't seem like it even was possible. Yet, here I am. And it's more real than anything I've ever experienced before. Not like I had much to base that on, however, given that I have no memories prior to being here. I stood back up and stumbled backwards away from the edge, feeling dizzy and weak in the knees, until I sat down hard onto the sand. With my head in my hands to try and stop the feeling of spinning, I tried to take several deep breaths to calm myself down. After a few moments, I did start to calm down a little bit, but then I noticed something quite strange. It seemed as if the ground was moving underneath me, but in an unusual way. What is that? I thought to myself, paying attention to the feeling in the sand beneath me. The ground wasn't vibrating or anything like that, but what is that? It almost felt like it was steadily becoming less firm, like it's... Whoa! I shouted as I felt the ground beneath me suddenly sink down noticeably. The ground is sinking! No. Oh no, is this quicksand? Shoot, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do in quicksand? I think maybe do I try to not move as much, or... I said aloud, suddenly being cut off by another significant drop downward. Now, my butt was much lower than my legs and feet, making me lean backwards. It's like I'm sinking faster toward the center, I realized. Suddenly, I fell backwards and my legs and feet lifted into the air as I flipped over backwards, rolling down several times toward the center. From here, I could feel that the sinking was constant. It was not happening intermittently here, but instead, it seemed constant and like the pace was even quickening. Oh my goodness, no friggin' way. How do I get out of this? I shouted in disbelief as I tried to scramble back up the sand toward where the edge was. My struggle seemed to be in vain, however, because no matter how hard I tried, I kept sinking down further and further as the sand sank faster and faster. No! Come on! I shouted as I desperately climbed, but it was futile. In what seemed like only a matter of moments, I was apparently in the center of the island of sand, buried up to my waist and steadily being covered by sand, falling on top of me. As I continued sinking, now up to my shoulders, I took a huge breath and held it just as the sand covered my head. Did I cheat death earlier? Was I supposed to die buried under crushing sand with no air? Is this my punishment? And Death said, "Nope, you're still dying like this today!" I cried out in my mind, trying to grasp why this is happening to me. What did I do to deserve this? I don't understand. Suddenly, I felt myself being squeezed through what felt like a narrow tube of some kind. I could barely fit through it, but the moving sand acted kind of like a lubricant, which kept making me move through it. I began to feel very claustrophobic, as I couldn't move at all, with my arms jammed tightly against my sides, and I knew that if I were to get stuck, I had absolutely no way to push or pull myself in either direction. And just as this overwhelming fear began to take over and make me start screaming, I felt my feet and my legs exit the tube. I kicked my feet around in every direction, trying to find somewhere I could stand, but all I could feel was open air beneath me. Then, As the top of my shoulders finally squeezed through the tube, I was suddenly falling through the air once again. Ah! I screamed as the air rushed past me, with my arms and legs flailing around uselessly in every direction. Looking down to see where I was, I didn't inspire much confidence in me either, but it did certainly intrigue me. Far below me, I could see a large circular pile of sand rising up higher toward the center like a big cone or mound of sand, and all around the edges was that same sparkling blue ocean. What is this place? I thought, trying to make sense of this utterly nonsensical reality that I seemed to be trapped in. Unfortunately, I didn't have much time to dwell on these thoughts, because I was quickly approaching the center of that mound of sand. Ah! I screamed again, preparing to brace for impact as I hurtled toward the giant pile of sand at what seemed to be like 100 miles an hour until... I impacted the sand and sank into it a little bit, then started quickly rolling down the side of it towards the water. Apparently, the sand wasn't packed down very hard, and I thanked God for that. Otherwise, this could have ended much worse. I rolled down over and over, sometimes sliding, and then finally, splash! I splashed into the water. I said with relief, feeling the cool water wash over me. I stood up, but reached down to splash some more water onto my face and wash the sand out of my eyes. Shaking my head back and forth, flinging the water away, I rubbed my eyes and looked out at the ocean in the distance. For some reason, I hadn't done that earlier when I first woke up. Instead, I had turned around and focused on the island, trying to figure out where I was. But now that I'm looking out at the blue horizon, I noticed something strange. Suddenly, the hair on my arms and neck stands straight up as I feel a chill rush down my spine, and I swallow dryly. Oh my... I trailed off, not believing what I was seeing. Far off in the distance, a pair of unimaginably large, human eyes were staring back at me. Ah! I screamed once again, but this time, I finally lost consciousness, and I passed out, falling backward onto the sand. The unimaginably large pair of eyes in the distance suddenly blinked, and with a rush, I could feel my awareness suddenly fly toward the eyes through some kind of glass barrier, and I turned around to see that I was stuck inside of a giant hourglass. Booming laughter shook the very essence of my awareness, and I saw an enormous hand reach out, grab the hourglass, and flip it back over again. I could see my body in the distance begin falling toward the center once again, and I thought, but why? Hi, fellow dreamers. Thanks for listening and joining the Dreamy Man on his journey through this dream. Please do him a favor by liking and subscribing with that little notification bell so you'll be notified every time he falls asleep and starts dreaming again. See you next time, and may all of your dreams come true.